Hello everyone and welcome back to No Limit Hold'em winning preflop strategies and analysis. And the point of this video is I just want to kind of give everyone a heads up and an outline of what sort of things we're going to be getting into in this course. So we'll start off by taking a look at open ranges, and specifically we'll look at each position, EP, MP, cutoff, button, small blind. Take a look at what sort of ranges Hero's been opening there, see how the results are, see what we can learn from those results. From there, we'll also be able to start getting an idea of how we're turning a profit with different hands. What sort of hands are going to be making money and why? And I think in understanding the why of how things are turning a profit, then that can also help us have a good idea for how to assess the value of hands in other situations other than just opening. More specifically, we'll also take a look at how to play versus one or more limpers. And we'll also, wrap up and I'll give you some suggested ranges on how we want to play in each position ourselves. So we'll take a look at facing raises, and specifically we'll start by taking a look at calling preflop 2-bets. We'll take a look at the immediate price that we need on the call compared to how much equity does our hand have, and also compared to how much of that equity will we actually realize. And lots of things we'll need to take a look at there. But one of the key ones is also how many players are left to act and how that can change the amount of equity that we can realize. Part of looking at that will also be looking into conditional probability, which I'll explain what that is, what it means, how to use it. And as always, we'll take a look at results, see what hands are winning, losing, see if we can start coming up with some specific themes that seem to be occurring. And as always, I'll give you some suggestions of ranges to be using versus different positions. We'll also talk about 3-betting. We'll, as always, analyze things by every position that we can think of, see what sort of results we're getting in different positions. From there, we can start coming up with good ideas for what sort of hands we can bluff with. We'll be able to come up with some good ideas for what sort of hands we can be value 3-betting in different positions. From there, we can also do some work on constructing our 3-betting ranges to come up with good balanced strategies. And I'll put all that together and give some suggested ranges, again, all these different positions and scenarios. Same idea with facing 4-bets. What sort of hands can we call 4-bets with? What sort of hands can we be 5-bet shoving and versus different positions? What should shoving ranges be? We'll be calculating what sort of ranges our villain must have when 4-betting. And as always, putting all that together and coming out with ideas, specific ranges, specific advice to each scenario and positions. There will be a ton of information on big blind defense. One of the key things I think that a lot of you will find very different is how much we can actually call out of position into big blind. So I'll get into the whys of that, show you some results using these very wide ranges, and spoiler alert, it'll be working out fine. I'll show you how you want to play versus different raise sizes. So specifically, how do we want to play versus a 3x from a cutoff as compared to a 2.5x on the button as compared to a min raise in the cutoff, and so on. So we'll take a look at all that sort of stuff. It's going to be really packed full of a ton of pre-flop big blind information. And lastly, we'll take a look at defending versus 3-bets and really all the scenarios. So what should we do when we're out of position versus in position? What about cutoff versus button as compared to cutoff versus small blind? What about button versus small blind as compared to button versus big blind? Is that any different? We're going to take a look at all those sort of things. We'll take a look at how much equity is required. It's going to be different whether you're in position or out of position. So I'll show you how that all works. And I'll break it all down too, of course, giving you specifics on what sort of ranges we should be playing in different positions as a starting point. And of course, we'll take a look at 4-betting as part of the defending versus 3-bet strategy. So both calling and 4-betting we'll take a look at. So that's all as far as giving you an idea on what we're going to be getting into. I'm really excited for everyone to kind of come aboard. Again, I really appreciate your interest in this video course, and let's get started.